ground
came
school.
to Binlanders, he was sort of in the he came in right on time to see Reinhard becoming sober for the first time, and all this sort of stuff. And he told me that when he told me that when Binlanders was just really picking up speed, he says that there was a culture of we're going to care hard,
Yeah.
and there's drug use and there's all sorts of stuff. He says with yourself and with Reinhard and with Niels, and it was just a different time.
So thank God I never used and partied with Reinhard and them. So my journey started when I went to treatment for the first time in '99. I was a heroin addict, intravenous heroin addict. It wasn't my drug of choice, but eventually all the drugs just kind of led up to me using heroin and stuff. And I came out, went to treatment, and then only I went and studied drama. Had a good 6 years of career, in the industry, and then I had massive relapses. And
Into heroin again?
No, cocaine and crack and cat and all the other things, and I couldn't get clean. I went from one treatment facility to the next. I was fired at Sierra Milan, I was fired at so many other gigs, and just nobody wanted to touch me. And then eventually I ended up in a few psychiatric wards, Vescopies and Tara and everything, and I ended up going to Botswana for a year to just kind of get out of the country. Lived in Botswana for a year and a half, came back. I tried a whole bunch of things in Botswana, nothing worked out.
What do you mean when you say things in Botswana?
Well,
like
I've always,
treatment
entrepreneurial things. I've always tried to do, various things to earn money apart from the film industry, and I've had many hard knocks, but I've also today been very successful in various business ventures that we have. So I've learned a great deal, but came back with a lot of debt. Moved back in with my mom. I was clean and sober, and in 2007, Elsha, the producer of Binlanders, she phoned me and she said she heard I'm back in South Africa. She wants me to come and do a screen test, but they just all want to meet me first to see if I'm
stable. Yeah.
If I'm stable, am I on my meds? Am I drinking everything that I'm supposed to drink? Am I clean? And then I started at Binlanders.
Did you have to do a drug test?
I didn't have to do a drug test, but everybody was there. And the entire, from the producers to all the directors and everything, and they sat there and they all felt, okay, great, this guy's clean and sober, it's awesome. I didn't have a car. I lived in a flat with only a mattress and a few teaspoons. I had to take a taxi, black taxi, to work to Fox Street when they shot in Fox Street still, in town every day. And slowly but surely, I just knew I had to stay clean, do my work. I had 2 pairs of pants and I had a jacket. That's all I had. And slowly but surely, I stayed sober. Worked there from 2008 2010. My dad in 2010 sent me this old 230 Merc that he had, because he also started saying, okay, this guy's clean again, whatever, let me help him with the car and everything. At the Merc, and then in 2010 I was invited to go to Survivor. And then I won Survivor.
Okay, so that was sort of the end of that chapter.
Well, let me tell you. So what happened on Survivor, apart from the money and apart from the fact that I met, I just won because of grace. That's it. It wasn't because I had a good game plan or anything like that. It's just grace, because it was God's way also to redeem me in the eyes of the public. Because everybody knew I was a junkie. Now for the first time people could see, but this guy actually pulled himself together and he won Survivor. So that was really, really special for me. And then of course, my kind of perspective on my career started changing quite drastically after Survivor. So yeah.
Okay,
but just to answer your question, sorry. So Reinhard and Niels and all those guys and stuff, they were, while I was at Binlanders, it was hard and it's tough. I've got to stay clean. I go out with the boys, but I'm clean and sober and everything and stuff. And they used to party hard.
Yeah, they were not clean and sober at the time.
No, they were not clean and sober. So it was really, really, really difficult. But Reinhard and I have always been friends and stuff. And I allowed him to walk his journey. You can't say to somebody, listen, what you're doing, dude, you're going to hurt yourself and everything. And he had to kind of figure that out for himself. And about 5 years ago, he gave his heart to the Lord and he started changing and stuff. And today, look what he's doing. It's incredible.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know if you are comfortable sort of reflecting back on this, but how does one go from, like a normal guy just growing up to someone who uses heroin? Because heroin is not a gateway drug. Heroin is the end. How does that look like? How did you get to the point where you were a regular drug user back in the late 90s?
Well, look, you're absolutely right. It doesn't start with heroin, but it's always a combination of a whole bunch of things. You can't say I started using drugs because of this or this or that. I mean, I know people that took their first line of cocaine or cat and they didn't even know why they took it. They was just there at a party and they just decided to do it. Sorry, excuse me. And obviously what happens is, there are many reasons why people would pick up their first joint or pick up their first line. That's not difficult. I mean, people, today cannabis it's kind of legal. I think it's a big mistake because of the value system of the families that are damaged because of this. So, but that's an argument for a different time. So anyway, so it will start with that, but then people continue using it because it's so freaking nice. Often people ask me, why do my kid use drugs? Well, because of depression, because of this, because of that. It's not. It's because it's so freaking nice. It's the most wonderful thing in the world. Cocaine is the most wonderful. It makes me feel incredible. I love that stuff. I love it. I love crack cocaine. I love heroin. I love all that stuff. It's just the consequences of using it is just too hectic. So, but it's a combination of a whole bunch of things. I come from a family where my mother and father was divorced at a very young age. My father was a workaholic. My mom comes from the Free State, but she came from a family where her father, kind of was a tyrant. So that kind of method of trying to school the kids, she inherited that kind of method. It was a real broken setup. My brother also drank quite a lot. When my mother and father got divorced, we went and lived with my mom. My father then got remarried. And just from a very young age, it's that feeling of, I'm not blaming my parents at all. You can't blame your parents, for what you've done. But there were a whole bunch of elements that kind of gave, that will push you to that side. You kind of grow up with feelings of not feeling worthy, not belonging, not feeling a part of, always kind of alienated, always strange, always. And I always, ever since I was a kid, loved everything that was a bit risque and dark and different and everything. I started stealing from a very young age. I got a kleptomaniac. I started stealing things because it gave me the sense of power as a young child. And I just loved experimenting with this stuff. And it literally went from the one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And it went from cannabis to ecstasy and LSD, which was quite big in the late 90s. LSD is not a big thing really today anymore, but it was a massive drug then. And then from there it went to cocaine, then crack. And what happened was, with the cocaine and the crack come downs, the depression is so heavy that a friend of mine gave me a little bit of heroin to use after the come down,
to pick you back up,
to kind of pick you back up. And that feeling was just incredible. So every time we use cocaine and crack, well, let's use some heroin. And the thing is, all our friends were using it. All our close friends started dealing, and they started becoming big dealers. They started making thousands of rands. I'm not talking about just being a runner here and a runner there and selling a bit of dagga or selling a pill here and stuff. They became massive dealers. I mean, some of our mates were caught and they went to prison for years, 5 years, 10 years, massive. I mean, the head of Narcotics Anonymous, well, the head of narcotics at the time, Blackie Swart, were after these guys for years to catch them.
Yeah, friends of yours, yeah.
Yeah, and these guys were our mates. So, and because I also grew up, I grew up in a very, very conservative, staunch Christian home, and I hated it. I hated everything that Christianity stood for, because I thought it was a whole bunch of rules, and you go to church, and it's so boring, and it's like everything. Like, I didn't understand what the relationship with my Creator was. I didn't understand it at the time. I didn't understand that intimate relationship with Jesus and what He came and did for us. It was just this religious flippin' setup. And so kind of what happened with me happens with thousands of kids out there. I mean, my father was head of the bar. He's a senior advocate. He brought in Pretoria Bank, Eurobank, the France Accent Bank. He was one of the founders there. He's done some incredible work. I come from a family with, my father's got 2 doctorate degrees, 2 PhDs. My mom was a teacher. So it's not as if we come from a family that, you kind of look at drug addicts on the street and you think, yeah, it's those kind of people that do it. It's not. It's families that, well-educated families that these things happen with. And I do believe that love plays a massive role. How the kid experiences love as he grows up plays a massive role. And And then your friends. I mean, look, you kind of go to schools today and everything, and there are thousands of people that kind of went the same route. They might not end up with heroin, but I mean, meth is such a big thing. My brother is a meth head. My brother is so cooked on meth, it's not even funny.
Still?
Meth, yeah, still. He's my older brother, and he's a super cool dude. He's so talented. He is so incredibly talented. He's got a CFA. He's a chartered financial analyst. I mean, a CFA is like a chartered accountant. It's just a little bit more, he's exceptionally intelligent. He worked at Sun on private investments. He was he's got a lot of money. He's got a lot of money, and he's always had problems with addiction as well. And he fell back into meth, and he can't get out of it. It's hectic. So there's no discrimination when it comes to addiction.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't care about education. It doesn't care about color. It doesn't care about age. If it gets you.
So I want to ask two questions because I've never really been exposed to this kind of scene. So there's two things. The first thing is, what's the difference between cocaine and crack cocaine? What is the actual difference?
Oh, okay. So both are cocaine.
Okay.
Both. It's exactly. So what they do with crack is they take. So cocaine you snort.
Mm-hmm.
You can also shoot it. We often had heroin and we put a bit of cocaine in, and you call it a snowball. You put cocaine and heroin and you shoot it. It's quite intense. Okay. But crack cocaine is you smoke it, so you've got a little, like usually you'll see a little glass pipe with a gauze.
Oh yes, okay.
So it's a little rock. You'll get these little pieces. You can buy big pieces of crack cocaine. Call it golf balls, big fat pieces like this, and you break pieces off and you put it on there and you melt it and you smoke it. But what they do is they take cocaine and then they boil it with bicarb soda. You take bicarb soda with that and some water and then you boil it into a paste. So now you smoke it instead of snorting it. It's the same feeling, just so much more intense. So much more intense. The up is so much more intense than you take a line, and the down is so much more intense. So it's the drug that will wipe you out financially the quickest.
Is it? Very expensive still.
Crack cocaine. No, it's not that it's so expensive. It's less expensive than cocaine. I mean, you can buy 50 Rand rocks, 100 Rand rocks. You're close to Hillbrow, you can just go, well, today you just find your dealer and he drops it off anyway. But the thing is, you don't stop. You can start smoke it. Once it drops you just want another one.
I've heard. So I was watching an interview with Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street.
Yes.
He was on a podcast, and I was watching this episode, and he said that the big thing about cocaine specifically, which was his drug of choice for many years, he says that every time you use cocaine, it's just a little bit less intense than the previous time. So he says you will forever be chasing the high from the first time you had it. So you'll keep taking more and more and more to try and capture that first high that you ever had. Which I think
is exactly the same with crack. It's the exact same thing. Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, if it's the same thing, you've just turned it into a different form so that you can consume it differently.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm now clean again. 12 years. 12 years now, I'm clean, sober, no alcohol, no nothing and stuff. If I had to use cocaine today, that same it'll hit me. It will freaking, and then you don't stop because you want to get that
first time.